All right, welcome back to Mr. Music's YouTube page. We are on 9.7, that's Chapter 9, Lesson 7. This is P167 in the homework. All right, let's get to it. Number 4, 5, 6, and 7, we're comparing decimals. The key here, again, I would rewrite these numbers vertically in order to compare them. So let's do that for number 4 here. I have 0.94, and we would say that as 94 hundredths. And then I have 0.9, and again, I line up the ones place, I line up my decimals. I have a 9 in the tenths place, and since there's nothing here in the hundredths place, the number that is equal to nothing is 0. So I can put a 0 placeholder there. If I have nothing, I can put 0 because 0 is equal to nothing. So now I can compare these two numbers. So first I start in the ones place. So 0, 0, those are tied, so I keep going. Then go to the tenths place. 9 and 9, those two are tied. So I go to the hundredths place, where 4 is bigger than 0. So 4, the number that had the 4 in the hundredths place, 94 hundredths is bigger or greater than. So 94 hundredths is greater than 9 tenths. Okay, so I will do one more. Let's do number 5 on these ones, and then I'm going to move down to the bottom. Okay, number 5, the first number is 0.3. There's a 0 in the ones place, then my decimal, then a 3 in the tenths place. My other number here is 32 hundredths. It has a 0 in the ones place, then my decimal. It has a 3 in the tenths place, and a 2 in the hundredths place. Now up here, if I'm lined up, I have ones, decimal, tenths, and then my hundredths. There's nothing up here. Well, again, the number that we can use that is equal to nothing is 0. So I can put a 0 there. Now it's nice and lined up, and I can compare. I start over here all the way to the left. In the ones place in this case, 0 and 0 are the same size. They're both equivalent, so we go to the tenths place. 3 and 3 are equal, so I haven't decided which one's bigger yet, so I go to the hundredths place. 0 and 2. 2 is bigger than 100, so the number that has the 2 in the hundredths place, which was 32 hundredths, and had the 2 in the hundredths place, is the larger number. So 3 tenths is less than 32 hundredths. And then you would continue that same strategy on 6 and 7. Okay. Now number 8, 9, 10, and 11 wants you to use the number line up here. So we can do that. So it has 0, then 1/10. Okay. Now if this is 1/10, then this little sliver right here is going to be 1/100th, okay? So this little sliver right here, we would write as 0.01. Then 0.02, 0.03, this right in the middle would be 0.05, and so on. So when you see 0.1, it's the same thing as 0.10. This is the same thing as 0.20. Think of that as 30, 40, 50 hundredths, 60 hundredths, 70 hundredths, 80 hundredths, 90 hundredths, and 100 hundredths, or 1 whole. So that might make it a little easier to see. So 0.8 would be right here, 0.8. I have an 8 in the tenths place, 8 in the tenths place, nothing behind it, which is the same thing as 0. So that one's going to go right there. And then 78 hundredths. Well, if this is 70, this would be 71 hundredths, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78 is going to be right there. Kind of hard to see. But as you can see, this 78 hundredths, this one right here, 78 hundredths is further to the left. The further left you go, the smaller you get. So yes, in fact, this one is less than, and 8 tenths is greater than. So this is true. Okay, Let me erase those. Okay, 0.4, and we added a 0. We could add a 0 here if we wanted to. It's the same number because we have a 4 in the tens place and nothing behind it. So that number would be right here on the number line. And 84 hundredths, well, we know it's going to be past the 80 all the way down here. So that's a big difference between these two. And obviously 0.4 is much smaller, and this is saying that it's larger, so this is false. Okay. And then you can continue to use the number line in the exact same way. Now, again, pay close attention on number 11 because this 4 is in the tenths place, this 4 is in the hundredths place, so these are two very different numbers. So make sure that you keep that in mind. 4 tenths is going to be right here. 4 hundredths, remember this was 5 hundredths, so 4 hundredths is going to be down there. All right, number 12 through 15. It wants you to just say if those are true or false. Since we're not using the number line, we can actually use the same strategy that you use up here on 4, 5, 6, and 7. And really, you could use that strategy on 8, 9, 10, and 11 as well to check your answer after you use the number line. If you wanted to, you could double check using the place values, which is the way I usually suggest students do it. So I'm going to do number 12. The first number here is 0.09 or 9 hundredths, and below it 0.1 or 1/10. We have a 0 in the ones place. There's the ones place. Then my decimal. Then a 1 in the tenths place. And then I don't have anything in the hundredths place, and the number that's equal to nothing is 0. So now I compare. Start in the ones place. 0, 0 are tied. 1 is bigger than 0. So the number that has the 1 in the tenths place, which is this number here, is the bigger number. But this sign is saying that this number is bigger, so this is false. That is not true. We found out that the number with the 1 in the tenths place is the larger number, and this is showing the greater than sign pointing towards the 9 100ths. Okay. All right, you're going to use the same strategy that we used over here to do 13, 14, and 15 as well. All right, let's jump down to number 16. Kelly walks 7/10 of a mile to school. Mary walks 49 hundredths of a mile to school. Write an inequality using less than, greater than, or equal to compare the distance they walk to school. An inequality just means these are all inequalities up here. That's an inequality. Inequality. It's whenever you use one of these signs. Okay? When you're comparing two numbers and you're using any of those signs. So don't get too worried about that word inequality. It just means you're comparing two numbers using greater than, less than, or equal to. So the two numbers we have are 0.7. And again, I recommend you line them up using place values. So I have a 0 in the ones place, then my decimal, 7 in the tenths place. For the next number, I have a 0 in the ones place, then my decimal, keep my decimals lined up. I have a 4 in the tenths place and a 9 in the hundredths place. Now I have lined up ones, lined up decimals, lined up tenths. For my hundredths though, again, the 7 doesn't have anything behind it. So what I can put there that represents nothing is 0. 0 represents nothing. And then I start over here all the way to the left in the ones place. 0 and 0 are tied. 7 is bigger than 4, so this number, the number that had the 7 in the tenths place, is the larger number. So to write the inequality, I would write 0.7 is greater than, I could put a circle around it if I want, just because sometimes my 7s look like my greater than sign. So 7/10 is greater than, and the other number was 49 hundredths. So there's my inequality for my answer. All right, Tyrone shaded 2 decimal grids. He shades 3 hundredths of the squares on the grid blue, and he shades 3/10 of another grid red. Which grid has the greater part shaded? So again, we're just comparing those two numbers to see which one is greater than or less than. So the first number was 0.03 or 3 hundredths. And again, I line up the place values. 3 tenths, I have a 0 in the ones place, then my decimal, then I have a 3 in the tenths place, and I have nothing in the hundredths place. And the number we can put for the hundredths is 0. Then I start over here in the ones. 0 and 0 are tied. 3 is bigger than 0, so the number that has the 3 in the tenths place, that is the larger number. 3 in the tenths place, that's my larger number. So 3 tenths is greater than 3 hundredths. All right, hope that was helpful, and I'll see you again on the next video. Thanks.